This week on Head to Head, can Kylo Ren be saved?
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vancil.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So as you guys know, we've decided we're going to do this whole book review thing. Daryl, I think you actually had the idea of us, maybe reading picking a book to read.
Yep.
And then once we agreed on that, we would read the book and then at some time in the future, give a review. So I'm happy to say that we're not done yet, but we're about a quarter of the way through Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. And I got to say, I don't know about you, because I know we're about roughly kind of in this way through it. I mean, it's amazing, man. That story has been hooking me right from the get-go.
Yeah, I really love the dynamics between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. It's one of those things I've always wished I could have, and if it were possible, I wish I could see a movie or a series based on that, because that's just really interesting. But yeah, man, it's just really cool just hearing the thoughts of, both parties and just the
fact that their relationship
the way they
really started out all that great, and
and then just learning different things that, the Jedi actually do, in the sense of, how to meditate in a fight. How do you do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Just
exactly.
Stuff like that.
But it's also cool in the sense too of you got one guy who's, he's feeling like he's failing at being a master, and the other guy is failing at being a Padawan, and it's they're not really gelling, and they're not really
they have two different styles.
Yeah, they got two different styles, and it's leading to a bunch of misunderstandings. And then of course they'll do flashbacks of when Dooku was training Qui-Gon, and you get a little bit insight in that. So I mean, so far, man, I gotta say that and then the adventure that they're setting up is actually pretty cool. So I'm really looking forward to finishing this book, and especially when we can actually schedule the podcast episode where we'll do the book review.
Yeah.
That's going to be cool. So you guys can be looking for that soon.
Stay tuned. And if you can, pick up the book yourself.
Yes, we're going to have an affiliate link in the show notes. Definitely pick it up, because, let's make this a discussion. If you guys buy the book and it is good, trust us. Yeah. You will love it. Get the book, and then when you'll know in plenty of time, because, once we know that we're finishing it, or
coming close to it.
Yeah, coming close to it, about 3 episodes out or something, we'll start to promote it and let you guys know, and how many ever weeks you can expect to hear this thing, and then you guys can actually join in the discussion. Yep. All right, well, we're leaving the library. Now we're going to the Cantina.
Yes.
All right. So what do we got up first?
Well, the first thing is one of the artists from the Game of Thrones series is actually working on the Cassian Andor series.
Wow.
Yeah, so one of the artists who actually did a lot of the artwork and a lot of the design. I
actually do remember hearing about it, but it wasn't something that I really locked into, though. So this is kind of interesting. It's almost like I'm hearing this for the first time, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and one of the things I did love about Game of Thrones is the landscape and how everything
it's just beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful landscapes and everything like that. And so it kind of makes me wonder, all right, in this Cassian Andor series, because we saw him in Rogue One, and it was a very gritty, situation. And so I'm just wondering, okay, are we going to see continuations of that? Because that was very prevalent in Game of Thrones as well.
I think a lot of it's going to depend on how far back they go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I recall correctly, he had a rough upbringing.
Yeah, and he was a separatist.
Yeah.
So, that didn't fare well. So, I mean, it just, it depends on...
Yeah, where they start the story.
Yeah, where they start the story, location where they started, what planet's he on, what time period are we talking about? Is it a couple of years before Rogue One? Is it when he was a kid? I mean... Well,
I think, honestly, I'm just guessing.
Flashback?
I'm just making this up. But I think that we're probably definitely going to see some flashbacks to his childhood, but I think it's primarily probably going to take place with him within the separatist movement and what made him switch to the Alliance.
Yeah, it could be. Or it could be basically more of how, the rebellion isn't always the white knights, you know.
Well, yeah, that's
like there's a little bit of grit and dirt in there, you know. They have to do some less than savory things, kind of like that first scene in Rogue One when he ended up killing that guy.
Yeah, killing the informant. Yeah, and I think that's what I'm saying. Like, I think we're going to see it's a trilogy, or is it a trilogy or a series? Series, yeah. So I think they're going to start off with...
Depends on how many seasons they go. I mean, it can go... I think we're going to know more once we know the premise. Yeah. Then I think we can actually say, okay, this is probably... Because even speculation is really difficult right now.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see. But, you know, what do you guys think? You really excited, you know, knowing that this Game of Thrones artist is working on it? Or does it not matter to you? I mean, you know, look, if you're looking forward to this series, it doesn't matter who's working on it.
Right.
You know, let us know at Head to Head SW on Facebook or Twitter. And now... You know, just like last week, we got some more. You know, Daisy Ridley's really been busy out there.
Yeah, man, she's been, you know, definitely trotting the boards, as I say.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been asking, you know, with the Rian Johnson series, and of course, you know, she's at the end of the Star Wars, the trilogy saga of Rise of Skywalker, and people are wondering if she's going to be in Rian Johnson's trilogy. Is she going to pop up or have some cameos or some things like so?
As Rey or just
as Rey?
Okay.
So
that'd be hilarious if she were in it, but she played another character.
But yes, she denies being in it. That she's not even, you know, anywhere near that project. So
basically, like his latest trilogy is going to go back to, and she's going to play Rey's mom.
Oh my god, that'd be so cheesy.
It would be,
but yeah. So
well,
I mean,
I think we can expect that. Look, I don't really think that this is really news to anybody because, you know, I don't think anybody really thought that Rian Johnson was going to make a trilogy that was based on any of these characters.
Right.
Number one, I mean, other than somebody maybe like Rose or something like that, he didn't really create too many of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was just continuing a story, and then we pretty much got some confirmation that, you know, I mean, this is going to be like its own thing. We don't know when it's going to happen. I mean, at first we thought maybe he would do the Old Republic until, you know, Benioff and Weiss were involved. And then we're like, well, okay, it makes more sense for them to do it.
Right.
I'm still voting for maybe like an Unknown Regions kind of a thing, maybe bringing Thrawn into it, or it could just be some brand new, you know, thing that we have no idea. I'll tell you, I'm really the most curious about his, even more so than Benioff and Weiss, only because I already think I know what their thing is.
Yeah, you kind of figured with them coming on board, you knew what that was going to be about.
Yeah, and then if they are doing the Old Republic, because I mean, they all but confirmed that there was going to be an Old Republic, like a Knights of the Old Republic movie, but I don't know if it's like one and the same.
Right, like based off the game, or is it just in that time period?
Well, it's supposed to be based off the game, but the thing is Benioff and Weiss doing an Old Republic trilogy, but then there's also going to be a Knights of the Old Republic movie? Or is that what they announced their series was? Man, I guess I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to one of our recent podcasts. We actually talked about this like a week or two ago, but the Rian Johnson series, we don't know anything about that.
All right.
And it could be anything. So for that reason, and only that reason, I'm ultra curious about his. So I don't think it's any surprise that Daisy Ridley is not in it. Does it surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, especially because, you know, you don't want to get pigeonholed into just being a Star Wars person.
Right.
You know, you gotta, I mean, she's already gotten some other roles and other things. So has John Boyega. Oscar Isaac definitely has been doing other stuff like X-Men and, you know, a bunch of other films. So I think they just want to, you know, this is a big part of their life, and this kind of what propels them into stardom. And I think they're just going to, you know, keep going. Now, maybe down the line, like if they decide to do something post Rise of Skywalker or something like that, where they may need them to come back as older versions of themselves. Or,
like it'd be kind of cool to see, like, well, what's Rey doing in her 30s or something? Yeah, then, it's like 10 years later, maybe they do another movie that Rey's in. That would be cool. Yeah. You know, that would be actually really cool.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think she's really gonna, you know,
unless it becomes Grumpy Rey and, you know, she rejects the Force and some other little 21-year-old has to come out and, you know, that wouldn't be. It'd
be funny to see she do the Luke trick on that kid, though. That would be hilarious.
Oh yeah,
That's the Force.
Yeah, it would be really wild, because then these new characters would then be like the old veteran characters, the other new ones, and that would truly feel like, okay, Star Wars is really going on generation to generation.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next?
All right, so actually, let me get my notes here. All right, so speaking of Rise of Skywalker, Keri Russell, she's a new character on this in the film.
Yeah, I remember when they showed that really cool outfit.
Yeah, she had that really cool, like, purple and black, goldish kind of thing.
Man, I forgot her character's name already.
It starts with, I think it's Z. It's a
yeah.
We won't mess it up. But the cool thing is she kind of looks like a bounty hunter.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought she was, actually, when I first saw that.
And I think a lot of people might be thinking that she might be related to Lando or Lando's daughter or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Or was that the other?
No, that's the, what's her name?
Okay, so that's the other one.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was basically crying after reading the Rise of Skywalker script.
Yeah, see, everybody's crying. Thankfully, I mean, I'm sure people were crying after they read Rian Johnson's Last Jedi script, too. But
people were crying when they left the theater.
Yeah, people were crying after they came out, yeah. But I mean, it once again, and I think I brought this up last week, where it's good to see that, you know, these people are really being emotionally moved by this stuff.
Yeah.
So it really makes me intrigued to see this movie now, because if it's affecting the actors, and actors tend to be more jaded about these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, you know, to them, a lot of times it's just a movie. It's a job. They move on to their next thing. You know, sometimes it becomes, I mean, the perfect contrast to that would be the way that Harrison Ford looks at Star Wars versus the way Mark Hamill does.
Yeah.
Now, oddly enough, it's Mark Hamill's son, Nate Hamill, that's like the Star Wars junkie.
Yeah.
Like, he loves Star Wars.
Right.
You know, and because usually,
I'm surprised they haven't got him into a film.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they did, actually. I think he did have a cameo in one of them. But the thing that I find hilarious about it is because it's true. It's usually like if your dad's into something and it's not that cool. But he's like really into it. But Mark Hamill also is really into it. Whereas, as we all know, Harrison Ford, you know, not so much. So, I mean, a lot of times, you know, actors just are jaded and they just, you know, they move on to their next thing and they're not fanboys of that stuff. Well, when you have a situation where somebody actually writes a script where everybody's just like crying and they're all emotionally moved and they're, you know, they're really like just can't wait for people to see this thing. I mean, it just really makes you go, wow, I think they got it right this time.
Yeah, I mean, or either that, at least the stories is really that compelling. I mean, we still don't, I mean, there still may be elements or things that they, you know, and that's the thing about like getting it right, because I know we keep saying that, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost unfair, because actually, if you go back to our Last Jedi review, we were actually bagging on everybody for not, you know, being cool about it. And at work, you know, when I told you I was discussing the Star Wars with a couple of people at work, and one of the guys, you know, The Last Jedi was the one that disappointed them the most. And a lot of people share that. I mean, it's not that they don't think it was a brave thing and they thought it was great. It just wasn't what they were hoping it would be.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it could be a great story, but I think if it doesn't hit all the beats, if it doesn't answer all those questions,
yeah, it's not resonating with the audience.
Yeah, then it's like the true fans of it, then it's kind of like, you know, not again. But yeah, and I don't think so this time.
No, I don't either. And I think this is actually going to bring people back. In fact, I think that as much as The Last Jedi was a disappointment to people and a divider, I think this is going to really bring people back and be a uniter.
Yeah, the reclamation of Star Wars.
Yeah, I think it's actually going to, you know, I mean, at least I hope so, because it is like my favorite series. After all, we're doing a podcast on it. You know, and it's great that you guys are supporting it too, because, you know, and I know you can say the same thing. You've had this accent, stuff like that. I mean, when you choose to do a podcast, especially a weekly one, and you're trying to do this and grow an audience and stuff, it's a commitment level.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not always in the mood to record these things. You know, you're not always going to be in the mood to talk about it. You have to really love something.
Right.
In order to make the kind of commitment that we're making to bring this to you guys every week. So for people like us to actually have something that's constantly letting you down, it chips away at your enthusiasm.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I think that that's really what's happened to a lot of these fans that have all but turned from Star Wars. They're not doing it because they're a bunch of whiny crybabies about something and things didn't go their way. I mean, it's just like they're really giving a lot of their time and their lives and everything and turning Star Wars almost into a hobby in some cases. And they want to be inspired again. They want to be moved and motivated and everything that they loved about the original. Yeah.
I think that everybody just wants to have their own feeling. Like, I think people need to get away from the whole original trilogy vibe and just more so focus on like the feeling that you got from it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, don't try to make it look like or be the original trilogy, but just have that same spirit in it.
Well, it's kind of, and that's it. And that's something that I think you brought up even when we were talking about The Last Jedi during that actual podcast. If you guys haven't listened to it, just go back in our podcast. You'll see it's called The Last Jedi Review. It's actually one of the earlier ones, like the second or third episode or something. But one of the things that, you know, we were talking about, and you brought it up, I think, was the fact that, you know, the original trilogy has to be the template, but not so much in the fact that you got to make sure that you include this and include that. And it should feel like Star Wars. It should feel like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, you want to definitely follow the parameters and, you know, that are established and some of the traditional stuff.
Yes, I look at it like love. You know, it's like, you know, it doesn't have to feel like your first love, but it just has to have those feelings of like, okay, this is what.
Yeah, what it accomplishes.
What it accomplished. How does it make me feel? Do I feel the genuineness of it all as opposed to just, oh, I'm just here.
Right. I mean, and that's it, you know, because the problem is that, you know, Star Wars basically did something that no other franchise had done. And it's kind of hard to follow that up all the time. I mean, even Lucas himself, when he followed it up with the prequel trilogy, everybody kind of gave him crap about that. Now everybody's all about it because now they say the sequel trilogy has disappointed them. So, I mean, we'll have to say, but I will say that the fact that Keri Russell and a number of the actors have been crying and you know, and have been really emotionally moved by this. Yeah, really is a good sign.
Even Daisy Ridley's parents came to the set and stuff too. Like, that's, you know, it was cool, and they were like really like impressed and like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, well, that's really great. But what about you guys? You guys, you know, I mean, do you think that this is a good sign, or do you think that, you know, some of you might even think that this is a big PR move? And if you don't, you might maybe think that, okay, maybe they're moved because they're involved in it, but how are we going to view it?
Yeah.
You know, let us know at Head to Head SW on Facebook and Twitter. You can also hit us up at Instagram, email, all kinds of things. All right. Well, I think it's time to leave the cantina now.
Yep.
You know, put down the drink.
Not too many drinks today.
Right. Let's not cry, you know, over this whole thing. You know, tend to get a little weepy here.
Well, next we have Duel of the Fates. All right, so this week, Rise of Skywalker. Who do you think is going to steal the show between Poe and Finn?
Well, and this is the thing, and this is, you got to address the fundamental differences between the two of these guys. Finn arguably has the better backstory because it's more complex. It evokes more emotions. You know, you're talking about a guy. First of all, it was the first time that we ever followed a stormtrooper. I mean, everybody has to remember that he was a stormtrooper. We've never been underneath the helmet of a stormtrooper, so to speak. You know, so this actually, in a lot of ways, humanizes the stormtroopers.
Right.
So he has this whole thing, you know, he's trying to get away from it. And then he ends up, of course, with the Resistance, and he's fighting alongside them because he sort of has to, given the circumstances. But then he's trying to get away from them, and then he's torn between the two and all that. So obviously a lot of that is going to be about Finn coming into his own and really being the hero that he didn't realize he was born to be. And the Resistance is giving him an opportunity to fully realize
his potential.
Exactly. And there's a lot of meat in that story.
Yeah.
Poe, while an interesting character and certainly going through a struggle of his own with leadership, how to be a true leader, what's the difference between a hero and a leader, that kind of a thing. I just don't think that it's as compelling as the Finn story.
Yeah, I mean,
he's, I don't really want to say he's a two-dimensional character because he's not. I mean, I love Poe. I think he's a great character. He's got a lot of, when you read a lot of the extra stuff, like some of the comics and all that stuff, I mean, he really does have a lot of meat in his own story too. But I just think that from what we see on the film, I can't help but think that Finn, and consequently, this is what it comes to with stealing the show, because it's really who's stealing your attention. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, if you really want to be honest, who's going to steal the show is Rey, Kylo, Palpatine, But I mean, if you're, we're trying to the rule of two on Duel of Fates, right?
Right.
It's either this or that. So I have to go with Finn.
Yeah, I mean, I think Finn and Poe are two really cool characters, and I would love to see them expounded upon like in other series, honestly.
Yeah, they're very underrated.
Yeah, and I think they both have a lot of cool things. Like they both have really good comedy in their own way.
And they're also really good together.
Yeah, they're good together. And like, you look at Finn and it's the importance they kind of played in each other's lives in a way, because
absolutely,
Finn eventually like saved Poe, and then Poe actually gave him the name Finn. I mean, it's just like, and they kind of had that whole little bond that they created in this little TIE fighter for like 2 minutes before it got shot out the sky.
Yeah, right.
And so, and then they see each other, they act like they were like, like us when we don't see each other for a long time, so it's like, okay, well, where did that come from? But I think that you're right, that Finn has a more interesting backstory, especially, like you say, from where he's come from. He's running from stuff. He's never really had a place. And now that in this movie, he definitely has one.
Right.
We don't know what it is yet.
And it's going to be interesting. Well, the thing is, and it depends on how early they make this decision. Because let's just say that, I mean, to be fair, he went through this struggle a little bit in The Last Jedi, too. So let's just say that, and it has been a year since The Last Jedi. So let's just pretend that, okay, the beginning of the movie hits of The Rise of Skywalker, and maybe within 10 or 15 minutes of the movie, we see that Finn is firmly in place. He's made his decision. He's firmly with the Resistance.
All right.
He actually then has a lot that he could do, and there's a lot in there. I don't necessarily think we need to see a struggle anymore, because I think we've already seen that from the first two movies.
The one thing I would love to see, and in thinking about it, because remember, like on the last episode, we talked about, what's something that we want to see.
Yeah, in the saga.
I would actually love to see what Finn's skill set is, because he really doesn't have one.
Wasn't he a janitor?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, he was really good at cleaning.
I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like, I just really would love to see what they're going to do with it.
He had a little bit of, he seemed, and from what I read about some of the stuff too, he's got a little bit of hand-to-hand combat kind of thing going, which is one of the reasons why supposedly he was able to pick up a lightsaber and kind of know how to use it, because he had special combat training that way. Mm-hmm. And he just, okay, so instead of a staff or whatever, I got this lightsaber, I could do something with this.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I just really would love to see like his true development like that. That's a person
or what to their full he's going to play in
his full potential. Like, what is he? Is he a strategist? Is he, is he that type of guy? Is he more of, an inspirational kind of guy? Like, he doesn't necessarily have to be a fighter in the field. He could be like, my Mothma type person, or, like we don't know. And
well, that's true, because all we've seen is Finn basically running from what he was supposed to be. Now he's going to be what he's choosing to be. And that's going to reveal whatever his true abilities are.
Yeah.
So, because even he doesn't know. Because, from the time that he was younger, he was groomed to be a stormtrooper, and then he rejects it. Well, it's kind of like he doesn't even know his place in the universe. Once again, as you can see, we're talking more about Finn than we are about Poe, which...
Well, I mean, Poe, and the thing with Poe, though, I really would love, honestly, and this is, I mean, for, of course, all the, obvious reasons why we wish Carrie Fisher was still alive.
Well, of course.
But, I mean, I really wish you were here because I really feel like Poe and Leia would have more interaction.
Yeah, but what
in this?
Oh man, I keep forgetting that Laura Dern's character.
Holdo.
Yeah, that's it. I think that she'll end up taking that more mentorship role from Leia now.
Well, she can't. She died.
Oh yeah.
She kind of blew up in the...
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I really wish, because see, that's what I'm saying. Like, where the resistance is right now, you just have Leia and Poe.
Well, and I mean, technically, Leia's still alive.
Yeah, she's still alive. But I'm saying, like, if Carrie Fisher was actually living,
yeah, then she would have shot new scenes for this. And
I think Poe's story would have maybe developed even more because you would have had Carrie Fisher there to play Leia in a way that would have elevated Poe. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean. Like, I think Finn's going to eventually steal the show anyway, simply because he's kind of like the unsung hero, or he's kind of like the guy who doesn't have, like, we know what Poe does. But we just don't know about Finn.
Right. And I think that's it. It's kind of like we're still not done with Finn's story, really.
And he kind of has this whole, well, even though they said he's, they had the whole romance with Rose in Last Jedi, but in this one they said he's kind of like the Bachelor.
Single and ready to mingle.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just really, he has that Lando vibe. And that's another thing, too. I keep forgetting that Lando is in here. So it's just like, I'm wondering.
Oh, man, yeah.
Like, okay, are they going to kind of team up and kind of have, like, yeah, I could be like you, Yeah. So
Lando becomes his role model.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I could see it.
That'd be great. I mean, it's like Lando's training like a, yeah.
If he says that line in the movie, I'm going to die laughing.
Training like a stormtrooper, basically. See, but here's the thing. Nobody's really brought this up. So Lando's going to be in the movie. Is Lobot going to be in the movie? That's who needs to be with him.
Lobot.
We need Lobot.
That's a good question.
Still have my obsession with Lobot, in case you guys haven't been listening. What was that one that I went off on this whole Lobot tangent?
Yeah. Well, we did. It was like, who?
Did we actually do it? That is I think it was like a featured topic?
No, it was a Duel of the Fates thing, I think. I think it was like, who was better, a Lobot or K2S? Or I think we did like, not K2S one.
You're talking about, oh man, V or something. Yeah, the
droid from Solo.
Lando's droid. Yeah. It's so funny how, like, we're these hardcore Star Wars fans and we keep forgetting, things like Hodo died in The Last Jedi, or the name of the droid. And it's been a rough week, guys. I've had kind of a rough week.
You had a long day today, too.
Yeah, I've had a long day today. It's, you'll have to forgive some of the little slips. But, I mean, so Daryl and I think are going with Finn is going to steal the show. What about you guys? Do you agree with us? You think Finn's going to steal the show this time? Or do you think that Poe actually is the one that's going to do it? Let us know at Head to Head SW on Facebook and Twitter. All right. Now we get to go to our main topic. What do we got?
All right. From a certain point of view. And this week, the question is there still good in Kylo Ren?
Yeah, I want to say yes. Because a lot of times, the idea is, can Kylo be saved? Is there any redemption at all? Now, of course, I talked to some people at work, and they're like, no, he killed his dad. And part of the problem isn't so much that he just killed his father. It's his father was Han Solo, like one of the most beloved characters in the whole thing. And it's kind of like you can't kill Han Solo and be redeemed. But he establishes in The Force Awakens that he's tempted by the light. Mm-hmm. And it seems like he's almost, and that's one of the arguments that people use, is the fact that if there was a redemption, it would have had to be done in The Last Jedi. Because otherwise, it's a sort of weak storytelling where they go, okay, he makes his choice and just kidding or whatever. And I guess you can make the argument from a classic storytelling perspective that might be true. But if you think about real life for a second, you know, you don't know what happens to you later in life that something, because we did see an example in The Last Jedi where he was going to fire on Leia and he couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. You know, there's been hints in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think, can he be saved? I mean, I have a feeling that I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that they're going to.
Well, I don't necessarily want him to be.
Well, I don't think he can be. Well, I mean, you technically, I guess, can be, but I think it's more or less the likelihood of him being saved, simply because I think that, you know, he has to be vanquished along with
well, it comes down to, does it make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're saying is it's kind of like, well, you can technically do it, but does it really make sense for him to?
Because, like, what happens now? It's kind of almost like that whole Vader situation. Like, okay, like Kylo Ren, everybody in the galaxy knew who he was, you know, and he was out terrorizing, you know, the galaxy or whatnot, along with Snoke. And so if he all of a sudden becomes, hey, I'm a resistance guy now, like, people are going to be like, what? Like, what?
Well, all right, but I'll give you an example of, like, there's one way that I could see it working that would even possibly be satisfying to fans. I say that carefully because, you know, I don't know anymore. But let's just say there's a certain segment of fans that think along my lines. If Kylo comes into contact with Palpatine, mm-hmm. Because the thing is that Kylo has romanticized the dark side and the Sith and mm-hmm. all this other stuff. But if he actually comes into contact with one of these guys like Palpatine, and it's just like, you know what? These guys are
psycho.
Pretty, yeah. This isn't what I thought it was at all, you know? And it's kind of like he's been exposed to some of the good, and it's kind of like, you know what? Because he knows his grandfather turned back to the light side. Mm-hmm. You know, so I mean, it's one of those things that maybe he sees that the whole way of the Sith or even just the dark side period really just isn't the way to go. That I could see happening. It's not so much that something turns him. It's more like this isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah, he has his own realization.
And then it's like, oh, you know, what have I done? You know, in the name of this ideology, I killed my own father. And he just like, you know, loses it and then wants to destroy them and, you know, help and all that. That I could see. And that I think might be acceptable. But
yeah.
But it's kind of like you said, though. They've already done the redemption story with Anakin. You know, it's kind of like it would be kind of nice if we just saw somebody, you know, it's like, look, Palpatine wasn't redeemed. Let Kylo be Kylo, mm-hmm. you know, and let him, you know, do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to, you know, I think that eventually Kylo just has to pay for his sins, man. I think it's one of those things.
Well, he can be brought to justice, though. Like, for instance, if Vader had actually lived and was brought back, I think he would have paid for his crimes.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's just, I think people really want to see, and I've heard speculations based upon some of the stuff they saw in Vanity Fair and maybe some spoilers that they've heard that, you know, some people like Rey and Kylo are going to lose limbs and, you know, in their final battle.
Well, there wouldn't be any Skywalker. Tell you what, if Rey loses a limb, she's a Skywalker.
Well, we know
that's
definitely
like,
Kylo.
That's a Skywalker family trait, man, is losing something.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just like a pinky or something, you know, nothing as severe.
Right.
I mean, well, hey, they got those medical droids that could give you those like really cool hands and stuff. So
if that's the case, I was almost a Skywalker. But
well, Mr. 20%.
Yep. But you know, I just don't think that Kylo is going to be saved in this. I think he's got to go down with the ship.
You know, that's what I want.
Especially like after like, okay.
That's what I want, but I don't think so. I think he's going to be, man. Well, I think they're going to do, they're hinting towards it.
Well, I mean, I just think like, okay, I thought about that, you know, at one point, but then like, you know, in Last Jedi, when he was just like enraged when he was trying to fire on Luke, you know.
Yeah, I know.
And he was just like, more, I mean, he was like, you know, and then he went down there.
You know, you have to look at it though. This is not like a strictly evil thing, because he really feels betrayed by his uncle. You know, his uncle's like standing over him, about to like cut him down, because Luke went kind of crazy by his own admission. It was like, he didn't sit him down and say, listen, man, you know, you're going pretty dark. It's like, I sense you're going dark. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to kill this guy. I mean, it's like, you know, Kylo was like basically like a kid, you know, and it's kind of like, I think that
it scarred him.
Yeah, it scarred him. And it was kind of like he felt such a deep sense of betrayal that he wanted to eradicate Luke in order to get rid of that, you know, that feel, that whole overall feel that he had, because it goes beyond just some feelings, you know. It's like, it's just the way everything feels to him, the way he reacts to the Force, the way, because I mean, look, he's tempted by the light. Now, granted, that was episode 7. By 8, I think he was fully committed, but he was committed because of this betrayal, and the overall feel that you get from Kylo, like his whole vibe is just one of erratic, crazy, unhinged, like we used last week, behavior, you know, and it's kind of like the whole vibe that he goes around with, and it's some of that I think is fueled by just what happened to him in his life. Plus, you know, he's got his dad who's a hero of the rebellion, and his mom. He has a lot to live up to, and
his uncle's, you know,
he's actually a more interesting character than what a lot of people
give him credit for.
You know, and I think that's, if he is saved by the end of this thing, if he's a redeemed guy, like, oh, you know what, I'm not a dark side guy anymore. Look, I'm a Resistance member now, or whatever. I think that it could be a very interesting journey. I don't think it'll be that cut and dry. I mean, we'll have to see. But I mean, but what I want, I don't want him to be. I'll say that if they do it right, I'll be totally 100% into it. It's just, if you ask me today, like if you give me the choice today, I would say I don't want it just because I've seen it before.
Right.
Nothing to do with story. Like, look, we've been there. We've done that.
Right.
Let's do something different this time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you could go either way, and you could do good storytelling either way. That's why I always go back to, I don't get too hung up on, you know, what I want. All I want is a good story.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But what about you guys? Do you guys still think there's good in Kylo? You know, do you think it would make sense for a redemption story? Or, you know, do you think, look, this guy's already gone too far. It would be unrealistic if he had any kind of redemption at all. You know, let us know at Head to Head SW. All right. Well, now that we've had all this, you know, mayhem and chaos and all these people coming unhinged, it's time to clear your mind. That's right. We're going to take your questions now. And there's another Kylo-related question.
Yeah. We have Tara Nimpo. And her question is, do you think there is a scene with Kylo and Leia in episode 9?
Well, not really. Only because I think there could have been. You know, and again, we don't know what was in these deleted scenes.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, you know, there could be something that maybe would relate. So maybe in The Force Awakens, let's say, where they got the footage, she might have been talking to Han Solo. They could just, like, cut her out, put a new background in it, put her in a scene with Kylo, and now she's talking to him.
Or, I mean, what would really be cool is they talk to each other through the Force. That would be awesome.
Well, there's that, too.
Like, you know, she trying to beg him to kind of come back.
Well, and here's the thing that makes the whole Rise of Skywalker. Well, no, let me put it this way, because of what I'm about to say. It makes the episode 9 thing a little tricky. Because if you remember, the story was actually first written by Colin Trevorrow. We don't know what his episode 9 was yet.
Well, apparently from once again, Daisy Ridley.
Wait, she's just like a fountain of information lately.
Lately, man. I mean, she's been killing it, but she actually had a dinner with Colin Trevorrow. And she basically was trying to figure out like what happened, as far as.
It's interesting that she didn't actually know.
Yeah, as far as like what were you planning, the whole script. And she didn't explain what it was, but she just said it like this. It was very different. So even to her, it was kind of like, okay, it sounds a little out there.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering, like, is that one of those, like, when you're trying to be polite, but you're saying something sucks, like, oh, that's different.
Yeah, exactly. That's a different way of looking at it,
He's different.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's...
So I guess we should be thankful that JJ...
Yeah.
Well, hey, Colin Trevorrow was fired. Maybe it was so different that Kathleen Kennedy's like, oh, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not... We're not happening. We're not doing The Last Jedi again.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, from that said, then, you have to remember that, yes, you had this whole Colin Trevorrow thing. Mm-hmm. Then it morphs into the JJ thing. Carrie Fisher dies. I mean, you just have so many things that have more or less convoluted the stuff that it's difficult to say. Like, in the Colin Trevorrow thing, there may have originally been a scene with Kylo and Leia before Carrie Fisher passed. Because if I remember correctly, she died and he was fired after that. I don't think he was fired before that. I might be wrong, though. He might have actually been fired while The Last Jedi was still being made, but...
Yeah,
my timeline's a little bit fuzzy on that, because a lot of that stuff happened
so quickly, yeah.
Yeah, so quickly. But let's just say that Carrie Fisher was still alive when Trevorrow was fired. And then eventually they would name JJ as the guy. There's just so many different things that could have changed and everything that it's like, okay, what it ended up becoming, number one, you had to switch the directors, or at least the writers. And then secondly, the actress in question passes away. So it's like, it makes me wonder what episode 9 was supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a copy of his script, whatever he had.
Not his just ideas. His, though. So I want that, too, but I also want...
JJ's...
Yeah, JJ. What would the story have been if Carrie Fisher was alive?
Yeah.
Like, the story might have been the same, but, like, what would her...
role and impact?
Yeah, what would her role be? Like, how expanded, what would you have done? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
I really think that... Or
at least I would love to actually hear, like, an interview with that. Like, someone just sit him down, like, after...
Yeah.
It's all over, and it's like, okay, what was your vision for it had Carrie Fisher been alive?
If you had Carrie Fisher, like, if she were still alive, what would your vision have been? Absolutely. All right, what do we got next?
All righty. We have another question from a great fan. And the question is from Grace Wilder. I think Maz is going to play a big part in this next movie. What do you think?
Well, in the words of Obi-Wan, possibly. Yeah, I mean, it could very well be. I mean, she should.
Once again,
I will say that if she doesn't, she should.
Yeah, once again, kind of goes back to that whole thing we talked about. Like, okay, what are some things you need wrapped up in questions you want to answer?
Because
it's like,
that's another big one too. Man.
I never thought about
vision. I want that vision explained. I want to know how Maz ended up with
the
lightsaber.
Yeah,
that's kind of a big one.
Yeah.
And, she seems to know a lot of things. And, she told Han Solo, hey, that's a question for another time. Well, guess what? Episode 9's another time. Now's the time. Mm-hmm. I definitely think that, yes, you need somebody like Maz in the sense of being that, she's almost like Yoda's age because she's like 1,000. She's somebody that's seen it all. And she could actually, basically be the main driving storyteller in the sense of she's the connection to the past, which a lot of this movie seems to be hinging on. Not only do you have Palpatine, but you have the Death Star, you know, you got...
Yeah, I think I see Rey going back to Maz for a lot of answers.
Yeah, almost the way that Luke went back to Yoda in Return of the Jedi. Like, hey, you know, let's do a little bit of debriefing here, you know. And I can see, you know, maybe Rey's seeking Maz out to try to get some of these answers that she started to try to get, and then the First Order attacked, you know, and absolutely. So, I mean, now, of course, the question becomes, what do you mean by big? Because this whole thing could be like a 5 or 10 minute thing in the movie, but yet it's a huge impact.
Like she might reveal something that...
Yeah, she might reveal something.
Like she might be the one who reveals who Rey's parents are.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's a big impact, you know what I mean? Versus...
Yeah, and now, would you say that's a big part? Or would you rather say that's a... Because, you know, it might be a small portion of the movie, but the impact is immeasurable.
Right.
So, from that standpoint... I almost think that she has to play a big part in the movie, if that's how you define that. Now, if you're talking like screen time, you know, how often we see her, I don't really see her playing that big of a part as far as screen time goes.
Yeah, I think her screen time may be all of maybe 15 minutes, if that.
Yeah, if that. Maybe more like 5. Like, I think it'll be bigger than it was in The Last Jedi.
Definitely, which is like 2 minutes.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't see it being like some, you know, major thing. But definitely she does have some information that we need. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our show this week.
Yes, sir.
You know, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We, as you guys know, you know, we want to get some more subscribers, more people to be part of this little community that we've been developing. You know, we love it when you guys are writing to us. As you guys know, we do write back, and we like to discuss the theories and everything. So, you know, go find us on iTunes, Head to Head Star Wars Podcast. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us, I mean, pretty much anywhere that podcasts are, you can find us. You know, we're there. So be sure to do that. Hit us up on Facebook and Twitter at Head to Head SW. We mentioned earlier, Master and Apprentice.
Yep.
Daryl and I are going through the book.
Come on and join us.
Yeah, join us. Pick up your copy. Use our Amazon affiliate link. You'll see it in the show notes. And, you know, we can all read it and discuss it together. So that's going to do it this week. I'm Eric Vancil.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.